And I knew before I, wanted to put windows and doors and a roof, I needed a more solid foundation, right? And that's what you guys have done for me over the course of the last year that we've been working together. Like, we're completely off Google Sheets. We're in a relational database, right? Like, we now have a front end where people can access that data, right? So like, you guys have now built out the core infrastructure, which I see as like, the concrete foundation that now we can put doors, windows, siding, a roof on top of this thing, and it's not going to crumble down.
So I'm here with Sean from National Commerce. Sean, great having you here. Please give the folks a quick intro on yourself and your business.
Yeah, so I am Sean. Happy to be here, Tony. My company is National Commerce, and we specialize in helping brands that sell meltable goods, hazmat dangerous goods, and kind of oversized goods on e-commerce marketplaces. So Walmart, Amazon, Shopify. If your product has a little bit of like I kind of say they're hard to ship items is what we specialize in the kind of those three categories. So things that aren't as straightforward, we have expertise in shipping those types of products.
Cool. There we go. I know you came to us, I would say pretty early in the phase of your company. You already had a couple of clients, you were servicing them. And you came to us with, I think you called it, with a janky Google Sheet and some automations in the back end. And obviously that was sort of the problem that you came to us initially. Could you share a bit more sort of what was the situation? Why did you kind of come to us in the first place? Why did you reach out?
Yeah. So, luckily for me, I'll say it was half luck, half hard work, but, some of the clients that we started with were, they weren't small, to put it lightly. We right out of the gate, started doing some fulfillment for some smaller brands, and then quickly, took on some brands, that were doing some serious e-commerce volume, shipping hundreds of thousands of packages a month. So for us, we started out by running just on Google Sheets, right? Like, and that was kind of like our company brain, where a lot of the data was coming into our Google Sheets, and that's what we were sharing out with our clients and things like that. Once we took on some larger brands, we learned very quickly that Google Sheets is not, how do I put it? Google Sheets is not kind of like an ERP light type of software where, you can do a lot of volume within that application and expect it to be functional. So when I first came to you guys, I think this was about a year and a half ago, I had a Google Sheet for one client, and this sheet had about 150,000 lines of data on one sheet. Then we added probably 8 to 10 more sheets with VLOOKUPs and charts and graphs and API data, getting fed into there, and it was breaking on a daily basis. I mean, we were really tied together with a shoestring. So that was kind of my initial reason for reaching out to the folks at OpsKings was, hey guys, I need some help. One, operationally, and two, kind of, core technology here, like any sort of like, recommendations you can provide on the technology side of things, would be greatly appreciated. So that's kind of how it all started and how I came to you guys at first.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I remember early on in our engagement is the Google Sheet was janky, but it was handling volume. Like, you built something that, like, a proof of concept that worked, allow you to get going, allow you to onboard some bigger clients.
Yeah.
So, and I know me and Ryan were commenting internally, well, like, this is like pretty solid. Like, it works. It handles a lot of volume. Sure, it could, like, is it super scalable for continuing the business? Probably not, but like, this was an interesting build. Like, the logic behind it made sense. So, could you share a bit about your background? Like, did you have a tech background? I know you worked in consulting before.
Yeah.
How did you even get to the spot where okay, I have a functional prototype and a proof of concept of something that I want. Now I just kind of want to turn this into like a professional version.
Yeah. So starting kind of at the beginning there, like out of college 15 years ago now, I was in consulting for 5 years, worked at one of the large, big four consulting firms in the United States. Did that for 5 years, realized, the large 250,000, 300,000 first company wasn't for me. So after that, it was just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other, like figuring it out on my own. I've always kind of been an entrepreneurial person. So it was like, all right, I'm going to, take a couple swings here and see if we can, land on something. So my journey into the fulfillment space was, started in e-commerce, selling things myself. And then it was, like I said, just one foot in front of the other. Like, hey, there's a problem over here. Let me see if I can go solve that problem, right? And then, oh, there's another problem over here. Let me see if I can solve that. So that's kind of how it started. Was like I was selling some products myself. Landed on one product that was a hazmat dangerous goods product, right? And I was selling it on Amazon. It wasn't a good fit for fulfillment by Amazon. So it was like, all right, let me see if I can, do fulfillment myself of this product. So I started fulfilling it myself. And then it was like, hey, maybe I can, build out some infrastructure on the 3PL side. So we partnered with, another 3PL, open up some additional facilities across the United States. Now we're, fulfilling out of 4 locations in the United States, in New Hampshire, in Charlotte, in Las Vegas, in Montana. And then it was kind of like, hey, we've got some good physical infrastructure here. Where, we've identified this little niche here of, hazmat dangerous goods products that aren't a good fit for Amazon, but people still need these fulfilled because they want to sell on Amazon. Who else would need, this type of infrastructure? Who else has this type of problem? And that's when we kind of said, okay, like, meltable products, right? Like those aren't really a good fit to ship through Amazon in the summer, right? Because they're meltable. Amazon doesn't want to fulfill your meltables in the summer. So it was just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other. And that's kind of how we ended up where we are today. So that's kind of like the background side of things on how we got to be the company that we are today. And then I think the other half of your question was like, what was the other half of your question again? I forget.
Like personally, did you have a tech background? Because like you built some pretty solid automations that got you going initially, and you have a pretty, I would say, you have one of the better developed, I call them like product roadmaps that you shown us of, hey, this is the direction we want this to go into.
Yeah.
So that was curious for me because that doesn't ring to me like, oh, this is like big four consulting background. This to me is like, oh, someone who's worked in like tech or product. So that's like an interesting observation that me and the team always internally were commenting on.
Yeah, I understand it, and I can do it at like kind of an entry level. But so the place I sat before in consulting was the systems integration, right? So I was in the middle. So I spoke to the business folks and I spoke to the technical folks. So I understood, hey, here's a business problem. Hey, here's a technical like implementation. I knew what the business wanted. I knew how to do it, and I knew how to talk to the people that knew how to implement it. So I understand the technical side of things and like logically what needs to be done, and I can put some like intermediate or some like some basic things in place to get us there. But I think that's kind of as far as I was able to take it. Like I got something, like you said, that was working. It got the job done. I knew it wasn't something that I could build on. Like it wasn't a strong foundation to build on, but it worked. And I think that's when I kind of reached out to you guys, is like, hey, if I want to grow this business, I need a more solid foundation. Because like I've got something that works. It's not very scalable. And if we really wanted to go to the next level, it was, hey, I need to partner with an OpsKings type company in order to kind of rework what I've got here to make it more scalable, to give us a better foundation to grow on.
Yep. No, makes sense.
Yep.
That's why it explains the entire duration of our engagement, which has been lasting for a year and over at this point. I felt like you had a great sense of direction on sort of where you wanted the product to go.
Yeah.
So now, year into the entire engagement, we started from a Google sheet. Now there's a front end portal where people are logging in. We have different level of functionality. How would you describe sort of the current state? And then we'll touch briefly on what you think the future holds for the product, because we discussed before press and record sort of like directions you plan on taking with the tool.
Yeah, I think from where we started to where we are now is we're light years ahead today of where we were a year ago. What you guys have done is, like I said, I'm a logical person, and I can say like, okay, I want A, B, C, D, E. Like these are the things that need to happen. And then the best part of working with you guys is you've got a very smart team, and you can kind of like take that and deliver on, my vision, which is fantastic. You guys have really given me, I always look at it as, it's an interesting analogy, but I look at it as like building a house, right? Like where we were before, like I was building a business on top of a pile of mud, which is not a good place to build a business, right? Eventually it was going to come crashing down. It worked. The house stood up, but it was going to come crashing down. And I knew before I, wanted to put windows and doors and a roof, I needed a more solid foundation, right? And that's what you guys have done for me over the course of the last year that we've been working together. Like we're completely off Google Sheets. We're in a relational database, right? Like we now have a front end where people can access that data, right? So like you guys have now built out the core infrastructure, which I see as like, the concrete foundation that now we can put doors, windows, siding, a roof on top of this thing, and it's not going to crumble down. So I think that's the main takeaway from the last year is like, okay, now we've got the infrastructure in place to really pour some gas on this thing and just, try and build a big business here, because we can take on more clients, we can take on more volume, and we can get them set up overnight, and it's not going to break anything. So that's what you guys have put us in a position to scale, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great to hear. I think one of the things you mentioned that obviously we're working with our team, there's always the element of, hey, there's a technical implementation, but I would always sort of make the argument that the pushback on the initial design, the pushback on the direction of what is the best way to get this solution done, I would almost put it, on a scale as even more valuable than the actual sort of code that actually has everything going into motion. So you've been working a lot with Steven, been working a lot with Stepan, David, some of our internal team members. How was your experience? Me and you basically at this point talk to catch up to see how things are going. How was your experience working with the team?
It's been fantastic. I think that was one of my things that not that I needed to be sold, but I think when we first started, I actually remember it extremely vividly. And I've actually never shared this with you. I think it was probably the first month or so we started working together. So it was a little over a year ago, and it was month one, and we were still on kind of my old janky system, and I had never met Stefan. Like he just kind of had been a developer in the background. And I was on vacation in Canada, out of the country. And I think Steven was like, hey, one of our developers is going to like, make your system a little bit better. He's going to make a few tweaks. That's what's happening in the background. I was like, okay, cool. And he did something, and something broke, and no fault of his own. It just, something happened. And I remember hopping on the phone. It was a Friday night. I'm out of the country. It was probably 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, hey guys, I sent a message. Hey guys, something broke. It's not working. It needs to get fixed, And Stefan, he worked on it for the rest of the weekend. Like it was just one of those things where he understood the severity of the problem. Like I communicated a problem and he understood the severity of the problem and then didn't stop working until the problem was solved. And that's when I was like, okay, one, these are really smart people that I'm working with, right? Because they're able to diagnose a problem. And two, like, you know, they can diagnose the problem. They understand the severity of the problem. They didn't stop working until the problem was fixed. And that was kind of what like sold me, not sold me because I was already sold. But that was kind of like, okay, these are smart people that we're working with, right? So like I can trust them with, hey, if I communicate something, whether it be a problem, an idea, a vision, I can just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or hey, this is the problem. And I can just leave it to your team to get it done.
Yep.
And I know it's going to get done because you guys are smart people. You're, very technically adept. You're very business adept. Like, that's why I enjoy working with you guys. So that was kind of the thing that initially sold me was like, hey, something broke. And he just kind of worked on it until it was solved. He understood it. And I was like, okay.
I remember that exact situation. And the funny thing is there was no deliberate instruction from management internally to say, hey, this is, there was no policy that's the procedure to take.
Yeah.
And yet it still happened. And Stepan individually, and I would say a lot of our other team as well, they're just very proud of like the work they put. It's their baby that they create. So they're individually very proud of what they're doing and feel a sense of responsibility so that it actually works.
Yeah. And that was on full display. So like that was when I was like, okay, like these are really smart people who, they get it. They understand it. This is something broke. It needs to be fixed. And, it's my job to fix it. And you guys take ownership and take responsibility. It's not like, oh, hey, that's Sean's business. That's National Commerce's problem. We'll get to it on Monday. It was like, okay, like something broke. Like we gotta fix this. And you guys took ownership. And I think actually what Stepan ended up doing was like he kind of fixed the problem, but then he was also like took liberty and like, hey, I also noticed this
identified this and
this were a little bit wrong. So I fixed these as well. And here's a better version of what you had. And I was like, awesome, cool, done, love it, thank you.
No, I remember that situation vividly.
And honestly, like as a small business, like that was one of the first times, like I had been kind of grinding at this thing myself and with a very small team for a really long time, right? So that was kind of the first experience I had as like a small business owner when we were kind of like starting out of like, oh, I can like kind of outsource these problems to, not outsource these problems, but like I can work with, someone else and just say, hey, this is what I need and trust them to do it and get me back a better solution without me being involved in micromanaging, anything that needs to be done. So that felt really, really good from a business owner's perspective as well of like, hey, here's this problem, this broke, can you fix it and get back to me? And it was awesome.
Yeah. I get it. Final question. You mentioned we're now sort of foundational system is here. We're now kind of off to the races. I want to sort of look ahead another year from now. We're working on some cool stuff. Forecasting, AI, machine learning, algorithms, whatever we're going to end up kind of going into. Where do you see, obviously when we started off this engagement, we're building something for you. You have plans on obviously continuing to do that, but also some other plans. So I wanted you to share a bit, sort of where do you see the product going? Where do you see the system going? And how are you planning on commercializing it? Maybe potentially just outside of using it for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about is when we initially started, it was, hey guys, I need help solving this problem for me in my business in national commerce. And what we kind of identified was the solution that we're building can help other people as well, right? Because I am not singular in what we're doing here. We're doing fulfillment, like we're an e-com brand. We're working with other 3PLs. So like the problems that OpsKing is solving for me are not specific to me. So what we've done is kind of build the system in a way where, we're kind of treating it as like, the solution we're building for me, I'm also client one. right? And then it
Yep.
was like, hey, if I have these problems, other people probably have these problems. So let's see if we can, build something that is, can take on, other folks, like other businesses like me. So that's probably what I'm in now. It's kind of turned into, hey, there's a software and a SaaS component to what we're building, right? So it's kind of like this
Yep.
whole other business opportunity has spun up out of our engagement together. So that's what I'm probably, most excited about is, yes, we have our core business, which is priority one, but there's a software piece here that other people can start using as well. So like you said, we're managing a ton of inventory, right? And inventory levels, making sure you have the correct amount of stock on hand. You're not understocked, overstocked, all that sort of stuff. That problem is not specific to us, right? So we built a
Yep.
system in a way where other people can use this as well. Same thing with like inventory forecasting, right? Like, what does the next quarter look like? What does the next 6 months, year look like in terms of like forecasting out? So
Yep.
and it's really that the software we built has turned into this whole kind of suite of inventory management tools. So I'm really excited about, we're pretty much in a place now where we can kind of open this up to some other folks, some other businesses, and bring them on board and start getting some feedback. And, like I said, you guys are really smart people. So it's not just like, hey, let's build this, thing in a box. It's let's build something that's kind of open. Let's implement the most modern tools, right? Let's
Yep.
get the automation tools in here, the no code tools in here, the AI tools kind of built in here, right? So it's kind of like state of the art technology. So we built something that's kind of scalable. We've built something that other people, we could bring other people onto the system, and we've built something that's using the latest tools, like kind of in the market. And now it's just kind of like opening up to some other folks because, like I said, we're not
Yep.
singular in the problems that we face. We are building software that is solving our problems. And I know other people have these problems as well. And we've done some demos of what we've built, and the feedback has been, yep, this is awesome. I want to try this. Right. So, and that's just kind of like, all right, cool. We'll let you know when we're ready. So we've already got some clients lined up who want to use our software to help solve those problems that I'm experiencing, to help solve those problems in their business as well. So super excited about the future. And yeah, I mean, wouldn't be possible if this was still a year ago and we're still operating on 150,000 row Google sheet that breaks once a day, running VLOOKUPs, graphs, charts, all that sort of stuff.
No, love it. Love to see it. Final question, actually. What has been the growth in terms of volume you're now processing since we originally started to now?
So I think last year when we ended, we were doing probably around, we were processing around, I want to say 60 to 70,000 orders a month. That were, orders coming into the system, going over to our system, doing our processing, all that sort of stuff. So probably around, 60-ish thousand is where we maxed out
Hmm.
last year. This year we're probably averaging, I'm gonna guess we're probably double. We're probably processing around 150. We're probably processing around 150,000 orders a month right now.
Wow.
So probably our volume has doubled as a result of the systems that you guys have put in place. Yeah, I'd say around 150,000 orders a month is what we're processing right now. Over the next 6 months, we're looking to process about 1 million e-commerce orders, and that's orders. Yeah. So our primary business, our primary season is this meltable season, right? Over the next
Yep.
6 months, I think it's from April 15th to October 15th. That's when a lot of brands have real difficulties shipping their meltable goods over the summer.
Yep.
So that's our kind of high season. And our expected volume is around 150,000 orders a month that we'll be processing and shipping out the door for customers.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great to hear.
Very good. It's exciting. And this,
For
I can assure you, this wouldn't, our systems were breaking daily when we were doing 60,000 orders a month.
yeah.
if we were even to try and take a stab at 150,000 orders a month on our old system, it just wouldn't have worked.
Which now is solved, and hopefully that 150 becomes 1.5 or the next year's.
That's the goal.
Years to come.
That's the goal.
For anyone considering either working with us or thinking about potentially booking a call with us, anything you would want to tell someone who's in the process of considering working with OpsKings?
Yeah, do it. I've actually already recommended a couple of people to you. And I know some people have actually turned into clients. So 100% do it. It changed our business. Like I said, we wouldn't be in the position we are today without, you and Ryan and Steven and Stefan and the whole team that's working behind the scenes. I know there's more people than that. And David and I know there's more people working behind the scenes as well. So
yeah,
we wouldn't be in the position we are today if it wasn't for you guys. Hands down, no questions about it. So if there's anybody who's on the fence about working, with you guys or signing on that dotted line, do it. Your business will change instantly. I can assure you of that.
Maybe not instantly.
For the better.
Maybe not instantly.
Put in the time and it will come. It will come. I assure you.
Awesome, Sean. Thanks so much for this interview. Thanks so much for taking the time, and looking forward to a part 2 where we laugh at the numbers that you were processing in May of 2025.
We'll do all right. Schedule it now. May of 2025. We'll do a follow-up and we'll see where we're at.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean.
Thank you, Tony.